The factory that wasn't there beneath the frozen soil of Silesia. Under a canopy of pine and smoke, the hum of unseen machinery once echoed like the heartbeat of something unnatural. It was 1942, the year when desperation replaced reason, when war turned men into architects of nightmares. The locals called it the factory that breathes, though none had ever seen it. Only the sound of low, endless vibration, as if the forest itself were alive and whispering secrets it should not know. They said it was run by the Nazis, but even German soldiers stationed nearby weren't sure what it was for. Maps showed nothing but wilderness. Patrols were ordered to avoid a 3-kilometer perimeter. Supply trucks arrived only at night, headlights covered, drivers blindfolded. Some returned pale and trembling, muttering about tunnels lined with copper and walls that seemed to hum when touched. The Reich named it Werk Null, Factory Zero, an appropriate title because it wasn't supposed to exist. No records, no permits, no shipments. Even the bureaucratic heart of the Nazi war machine pretended ignorance. But one phrase appeared again and again in the scraps of documents that survived the war. Project Nebel, the ghost of fog. What was Nebel? Allied intelligence later found those two words circled in red ink inside the wreckage of a downed U. The attached file mentioned atmospheric interference, but offered no explanation. Was it a weather weapon? A radar shield? A prototype aircraft? Or something stranger? Something that tampered with the very perception of matter itself. Inside those tunnels, engineers were said to work without daylight for months. Some were volunteers loyal to the Reich, seduced by promises of power and discovery. Others were prisoners, scientists from Poland, Czechoslovakia, and France, forced to sign their names to formulas they did not believe in. One mathematician, before disappearing, wrote a final message on the back of his ration card. They're teaching metal to forget light. What did he mean by that? How can metal forget? Those who labored there described bizarre experiments. Entire aircraft coated in matte black composite, absorbing not only radar waves, but light itself. Vast arrays of angular plates arranged like mirrors turned inward. Chambers where sound simply ceased to exist, swallowed whole by silence so complete it made men lose their minds. Some swore the air shimmered when the generators ran, as if the world itself was bending around something invisible. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, the hum stopped. One winter night, in late November 1942, the lights across the Silesian hills flickered out. For 3 days, villagers heard distant rumbling beneath their homes. The snow shook. The trees trembled. Some claimed they saw a faint light glowing through the cracks in the frozen ground. Not fire, but something cold, bluish, like lightning trapped in ice. Then came the silence. When German troops arrived to investigate, the mountain entrances had collapsed inward, sealed shut with precision as if designed to bury themselves. There were no bodies, no survivors, no wreckage, only the faint metallic taste in the air. Command called it a munitions accident. A convenient lie for something far stranger, because for weeks afterward, compasses refused to work near the site. Birds avoided the forest entirely, and on certain nights, the villagers said they still heard it, a deep mechanical sigh echoing from beneath the ground. If it was truly destroyed, why did the earth still breathe? Some believe the experiment succeeded. That Werk Null did what it was designed to do. It didn't explode. It didn't burn. It simply vanished. And the real question that keeps historians awake isn't what they built, it's where it went. Could an entire factory, machines, men, and all, slip between the seams of the world? Or is it still there, humming quietly beneath the forest, waiting to wake again? The engineers of the impossible, when the war finally ended and the ashes of the Reich were still settling. Most assumed the secrets of Werk Null had been buried forever. But in 1946, inside a forgotten archive in Bavaria, Allied investigators uncovered something that reignited every dark rumor, a missing persons list. 23 names. Not soldiers, not officers, scientists. Some from Junkers, others from a few from obscure research institutes that no longer existed, mathematicians from Prague, acoustics experts from Warsaw, and one name that no one could identify completely, Dr. Weiss. No first name, no birth record, only a fragment of his personnel file that read, field of study wave resonance electromagnetic displacement. Who was Dr. Weiss? And why did every trace of him, every photo, every letter, every technical document vanish with the war? Among the documents recovered near Dresden was a set of technical notes titled Resonanzfeld Vorrichtung Resonanzarray. The diagrams were crude, but the concept was impossible. A structure designed to bend electromagnetic fields around an object, effectively allowing it to disappear from detection. A primitive blueprint for stealth written 30 years before the world would even have the language to describe it. How could such an idea exist in 1942? Witness accounts, collected by Allied intelligence, paint a disturbing picture. Workers described aircraft frames coated in a black, tar-lit compound that drank light. Others mentioned engines that glowed faintly blue but emitted no smoke, no heat, and impossibly no sound. Some claim to have seen the air itself ripple around the machines, as if space were being folded like a sheet of glass. A surviving technician, interrogated at Nuremberg, spoke only once about his role. "We built the cage," he said, "but we never saw what lived inside." His final written report contained a single, chilling line before he died in custody. "It didn't hide the plane. It hid everything." That sentence haunted every scientist who read it. What did he mean? Could the resonance array have created a localized field capable not just of bending radar, but bending reality? Investigators who reopened the tunnels in early 1946 found something they couldn't explain. The machinery, though corroded, was still warm to the touch. Instruments flickered when brought near the copper-lined walls. Compasses spun uselessly. The magnetic interference was so strong that their wristwatches froze at the same time. 2:37 AM. The same hour local villagers reported feeling tremors 4 years earlier. Coincidence, or evidence that something inside the mountain had never truly stopped running? As the Allies began piecing together the fragments of Werk Null, strange disappearances continued. Several surviving German engineers who had worked on experimental propulsion were found dead within months, suicides, according to the official reports. But not one of the 23 names from the Werk Null list was ever confirmed dead. Some whispered that the Soviets had captured them, smuggling them east for classified research. Others claimed the Americans took them under Operation Paperclip, wiping their identities clean. But there's a third version, one no one dares to put in official reports, that the experiment worked. That in their final test, the engineers of Werk Null didn't just make an aircraft invisible, they stepped into their own creation. Into the silence between frequencies, where light, sound, and matter cease to exist in the way we understand them. And perhaps, somewhere, they're still there, because when Allied teams sealed the tunnels for good, one final reading was recorded from a field sensor left behind. A pulse. Faint, rhythmic, steady, like the heartbeat of a machine waiting to be remembered. The ghost experiments by the dawn of the 1950s. When the world was busy rebuilding from the ashes of war, a small group of military archivists stumbled upon a file that wasn't supposed to exist. It was labeled simply Project Nebelgeist Atmospheric Interference Studies. Inside were dozens of yellowed pages, equations scrawled in pencil, fragments of correspondence between vanished scientists, and most disturbing of all, sketches of machines that defied explanation. The drawings showed circular chambers lined with coils, not in a uniform grid, but arranged like spiderwebs, geometric and symmetrical, radiating outward from a single metallic sphere. Notes in German filled the margins. Their translations unsettling Phasenvers Gerum, Phase Delay Magnetische Schleier, Minus Magnetic Veil, Schatten Frequent Shadow Frequency to modern physicists. It looked nothing like radar absorption theory. In fact, the math was completely wrong. It broke every known rule of wave propagation and electromagnetic behavior. And yet, one question kept echoing through the rooms of post-war intelligence offices. If the goal wasn't to absorb radar, what if it was to bend reality around it? What if the engineers of Werk Null had been working on phase shifting, manipulating how energy waves interacted with matter itself? A few scientists dared to whisper what others wouldn't. It's not stealth, it's cloaking. But that was impossible, wasn't it? 3 decades later, in a rare 1974 interview, an American aerospace engineer named Robert D. Hanley, a consultant for early stealth programs, made a cryptic statement that would reignite the myth. Some of our early work was based on designs found in Germany, Blueprints that shouldn't have existed. He didn't mention Werk Null by name, but the description he gave: circular resonance arrays, dark composite coatings, and an electromagnetic veil was identical to the diagrams in the Nebelgeist files. Could it be that the very foundation of stealth technology, the B-2, the F-117, all of it began with a secret buried beneath the Silesian forests? Locals near the old site certainly believed something was still there. Farmers told of tools demagnetizing overnight. Compasses refused to point north. Radios hissed and died. When carried near the hills, travelers spoke of seeing their own shadows move independently, as if delayed by a fraction of a second. And then there were the voices. Hikers and construction workers reported hearing faint whispers underfoot, metallic, mechanico, repeating the same phrase in German: nicht sichtbar, not visible, not visible. Some said it was a trick of the wind. Others swore they heard it through switched-off radio receivers. In 1958, a NATO reconnaissance plane flying over the region picked up something even more disturbing: a radar contact shaped like a perfect triangle, hovering at impossible speed and altitude. The pilot described it later as a shimmer like glass underwater. When he tried to follow, the object accelerated and disappeared. No exhaust, no heat signature, no sound. Ground radar confirmed it wasn't a malfunction. The blip had been real. The incident was buried within hours. The official report cited atmospheric interference, the same phrase used in the original Nebelgeist documents more than a decade earlier. Coincidence, or proof that something Sami machine had survived underground, continuing its silent operation long after its creators vanished? No one dared investigate further. The Soviets controlled that territory now, and they too seemed wary of the ruins. Satellite images from the 1960s revealed faint circular patterns in the forest, geometric scars visible only from the air. Even today, locals say that during electrical storms, lightning avoids that part of the forest entirely, splitting around it like an invisible dome. So what really happened beneath Silesia? Was Werk Null a failed Nazi experiment, or the birthplace of a technology so advanced it still hums beneath the soil, hidden by its own success? And if something was built to not be seen, how would we ever know it's still there? The Vanishing Archive in 1963, long after the smoke of war had faded. A different kind of fire erupted, one that didn't burn cities, but memories. The official report described it as an accidental blaze at a Berlin storage depot housing confiscated Nazi records. But among archivists and intelligence officers, the whispers told a different story. Someone wanted Werk Null erased completely. Thousands of pages went up in flames that night. But one object survived: a half-burned notebook, its leather cover scorched, its pages brittle as ash. On the title page, a single phrase still legible through the soot. Project Weiss Untergrundphase, Project Weiss Underground Phase. The name was unfamiliar to most investigators, but one man recognized the handwriting immediately. It matched the signature found in surviving Nebelgeist documents. Dr. Weiss, the elusive physicist believed to have led the resonance array division before vanishing in 1945. Inside the notebook, among sketches of coiled magnetic chambers and elliptical structures, were cryptic handwritten entries that read like poetry or prophecy. Light bends when told to listen. The air hums when the shape is correct. It doesn't vanish. It simply forgets to exist. Forget to exist? What kind of scientist writes that? And more importantly, what kind of experiment makes it true? Some pages show diagrams of aircraft-like silhouettes surrounded by energy field lines, each labeled with variables describing phase intervals, vibration, harmonics, and something Weiss called Luftschieße, Shichini, air memory. It was as if he believed the atmosphere itself could be taught to hide what moved within it. The notebook was reportedly sent to Allied Command for translation, but after that, it vanished. One story claimed it was taken by American intelligence under Project Paperclip, hidden within a vault at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. Another said Soviet agents intercepted it during transport and delivered it to Moscow's Institute for Wave Studies. Both nations denied it. Both nations also saw a sudden, unexplained acceleration in advanced aviation research soon after. Coincidence or resurrection? By the 1970s, aircraft began to appear that seemed eerily familiar to anyone who had seen the Weiss sketches. The F-117 Nighthawk, for example, an angular, light-absorbing design that could deflect radar, looked nearly identical to one of Weiss's silent airframes. Even the Beta Spear shared proportions, similar to his elliptical models. Had the ghost of Werk Null guided human hands once again? But the mystery deepened. During interviews in the late 1970s, several American and Soviet engineers reported experiencing technical déjà vu. They described dreaming of machines they had never seen. Planes made of faceted black metal engines that hummed without sound chambers shaped like the coils in the Weiss notebook. One Soviet physicist even claimed he woke one night to find his hand tracing equations onto his bedsheet and chalked the same equations later. Identified as waiver assonance formulas from the lost German files. Was it coincidence? Collective imagination? Or was something older? Something that refused to die, whispering to them across time? A declassified CIA memo from 1981 referenced the phenomena under the codename echo propagation. It theorized that conceptual residue from certain electromagnetic experiments could imprint onto human cognition, that the original tests at Werk Null might have created more than a physical field. Maybe they had created a psychic one. If true, it would mean the ghost of Werk. No, wasn't too metaphorical, it was literal. A pattern of thought, an electromagnetic echo, living invisibly within the world's airwaves, subtly influencing those who tuned to close. Perhaps Dr. Weiss's words weren't just poetic ramblings. It doesn't vanish. It simply forgets to exist. Maybe the factory didn't disappear. Maybe it's still here. Hidden, not underground, but between frequencies. And maybe the reason we keep rediscovering its ideas is because it never really left us at all. The factory beneath time, they say the past never truly dies. It just hides in the cracks of the present. And beneath the quiet forests of Silesia, the ghost of Werk Null may still be hiding. Modern explorers and researchers have spent decades trying to locate the ruins of the so-called Factory of Echoes. Most official maps still mark the area as restricted unstable terrain, according to the Polish government. But satellite images and on-the-ground testimony suggest something much stranger. Hikers speak of vibrations under the earth, like the heartbeat of some buried creature. Geiger counters spike without warning, not from radiation, but from electromagnetic interference. Compass needles spin, then stop, as if something underground pulls them toward an unseen north. Even digital cameras glitch near the site, their screens bending into static waves that reveal, for a split second, shapes that shouldn't be there. What could still be generating power beneath the soil after 8 decades? In 2011, researchers from the University of Krakow used ground-penetrating radar to scan the region once believed to contain Werk Null-S tunnels. What they found defied simple explanation. A perfect hexagonal cavity, more than 60 meters wide, surrounded by metallic signatures that formed circular patterns, almost like a buried coil. The instruments also detected a faint electromagnetic pulse, cycling at 7.83 Hz, the same frequency as the Earth's natural resonance. Coincidence? Or was Werk Null somehow designed to synchronize with the planet itself? If those readings are real, then it means the so-called phantom factory isn't dead. It's still active, still humming, still waiting. Theories multiply faster than answers. Some physicists argue that the underground materials may have created a natural feedback loop, a self-sustaining electromagnetic system that never shut down. Others, more speculative, suggest the factory was never purely physical to begin with, that its purpose was to distort perception itself. And what remains is not machinery, but an echo of its own creation. Could Werk Null have crossed the line between technology and consciousness? If Dr. Weiss's notes were true, if light bends when told to listen, then perhaps the facility was on T simply testing stealth. Perhaps it was trying to teach the very fabric of reality to ignore what was inside, to forget it existed. Imagine it. A machine that hides not just planes, but the idea of planes. A factory that built ghosts and then became one. Those who dared to descend into nearby caves described sudden drops in temperature, strange rhythmic pulses underfoot, and an uncanny silence, as if sound itself refuses to enter. One explorer recorded faint audio in 2017, a deep vibration layered with what sounded like distant mechanical breaths. When the recording was analyzed, the waveform revealed a repeating pattern that spelled out E-Morse code, The letters WERK hoax. Maybe, but it adds to a growing list of impossible coincidences. And then there's S, the most haunting theory of all, that Werk Null never collapsed or shifted. It phased. It slipped out of sync with our world by fractions of a second, enough to exist somewhere else. Half here, half not. That would explain the electromagnetic hum, the camera distortions, even the gravitational anomalies detected above the hexagonal chamber. If true, then the factory isn't a ruin at all. It's still running, just on a different clock. Perhaps Werk Null was never meant to be a factory of weapons, but a factory of forgetting, a threshold between invention and imagination, between science and something sacred. So if you ever find yourself in those woods, and the wind suddenly stops, listen closely. You might hear it, that faint hum beneath your feet, a sound like the earth holding its breath, a reminder that not all ghosts are born of death. Some are born of genius, and they never stop working.